Hello and welcome to an Unreal Engine 4 Blueprints tutorial. Today we'll create a simple journal that keeps track of objects that you've interacted with in the world, and it'll show the journal in the HUD. And after you interact with an object, it will delete the actor. So we've got Dragonborn who has an issue. He's trying to accomplish this exact functionality, so we'll help him out. I posted a answer and he wasn't quite understanding, so I'll just go through and re-implement my answer, and hopefully that'll help him out and provide other people good information if they ever get stuck and they're trying to implement something like this. So let's go to Unreal Engine. I have a brand new third-person project that I set up. There's no modifications to this yet. I literally just created it. So in your project, the first thing we want to do is we need to create the Ui Widgets. We'll start with those first, since they don't really talk to the actors and the player controller and anything else. So right click, go to user interface, widget blueprint, type in a name, WB. I'll do WB journal entry. So WB just stands for widget blueprint, and then journal entry. This is going to be a widget that the journal entry widget, the journal widget creates multiple instances of this widget and puts this in its vertical box. So let's go ahead and open that up, drag this in here, and what we need to add to this is replace the canvas panel with a horizontal box. You can do that by right-clicking canvas panel, replace with horizontal box. Next, we need 2 scale boxes, and essentially what a scale box does, it just allows the text within it to scale down if necessary, so you don't get overlap. You don't have your text flowing outside of the scale box. It forces the text to be smaller if necessary. So drag another text on the other scale box. I'm going to call this date time text node, and I will call this one message text node. Select your date time text node. Check is variable. We want the text node to be exposed to our event graph over here as a variable, so we can change its text. Another thing I will change, if you scroll in with the mouse wheel, I'm going to change the color of the datetime text node. So you can do that by, I think it's in, just look for color, and I will change that to like a light yellow, maybe something like that, a darker yellow. And select your text block, your message text node, and change that to like a lighter gray. Click OK. And we will go ahead and add a spacer to this as well, to space those 2 apart. So drag your spacer between the scale box and select the spacer. Go over here, let's clear out our search and look at the X size, and we'll change that to like, we'll do 28, and that'll space it out a little bit. Go back to your event graph for the WB journal entry. You can delete the event tick, but we will be using event construct, so we can leave that. Create a new class variable and call this message text. Give it a type text, make it editable, expose on spawn, and make it private. And do this one more time, except we'll do this with a date time, or we'll call this timestamp text. Of type text, editable, expose on spawn, and private. Compile that. What we want to do now is grab the datetime, get that, drag off the pin, look for set text, and then grab the message text, grab the timestamp and drag that right there. Connect up the execution pin and clean this up just a little bit. Date time, yep. Grab the message text node, drag that there, get it. Drag off the pin, call set text, connect the execution pin. Grab the message text variable and plug that in right there. Compile that, save on compile always, and then whenever you compile now, it'll save. If you don't want to save on compile, you can just change it here. But I prefer to save every time I compile. Okay, so that's that. If you don't know already, what the editable does, it allows this variable to be edited outside of the blueprint right here. And I'll show you that later. Expose on spawn requires editable to be checked, but when you have both of these checked, when you spawn a new instance of WB journal entry, you can automatically set the message text during spawn. So you don't have to spawn the journal entry and then call set message text. And private, just make sure that this variable can't be modified outside of this blueprint other than during the construction or spawning of this blueprint. So that's all we need to do here for the journal entry. Let's right click, go back to user interface, select widget blueprint, and call this one WB journal. Control S to save that and open that up. So what we need here, we will leave the canvas panel. However, we do need a scroll box. Let's drag that on the canvas and scroll in to zoom. I will manually set a width and height of the scroll box, and that something like that looks good to me. Back over here in your palette, look or search for vertical box. Grab the vertical box, put it in the scroll box. So now whenever we spawn a new journal entry and add it to this vertical box, the entries will be stacked on each other, and if there's so many entries that it becomes higher, it has a greater height than the scroll box will kick in and then allow you to scroll. Select the vertical box and check is variable, because we will need to grab the scroll box within our event graph. And if we go back to the scroll box, let's see, bar, no, it might be the vertical box. Look for color. Oh, nope. Go back to the palette and look for border. Grab and drag the border on the canvas, and then click and drag the scroll box inside of the border, and then grab the border and resize the border. This will just allow it so our journal has a background to it, and I'll just do a simple background color. So brush, I'll adjust the opacity down to 0.25, and I'll take the color to, I'll bring it down to black, and compile and save, and then go to the WB journal event graph by clicking on graph. Delete event tick, we don't need that, and delete event construct, we don't need that. You will need to right click, look for custom event, add a custom event, and call it add message. You can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it add message, but you can call it add log or new message or new message entry. Create two new parameters. Call this one timestamp. Set its type to a text, and create a second parameter called message, and set that to a text. Now we need to right click, call create widget, and select the class and look for the journal entry. Select that and connect these pins to the pin that it should be connected to. So timestamp to timestamp and message to message. And take the return value Let's see. First, grab the vertical box, drag it on the graph, get it, drag off the vertical box pin, and call add child to vertical box. Drag this return value, plug it in here to the content, drag the execution pins, and plug them in there. And that should be it for the journal. Next, we need to create a player controller. So right click here, go to blueprint class, select player controller as the base class, and call this BP player controller. Control S to save that, and open up your game mode. If you don't already have a game mode, you can right click, blueprint class, game mode base if you're running on Ui 4.14, otherwise it's just going to be called game mode. Call it BP my game mode, or whatever you would like. You can save that in the then go up to editor, project settings, maps and modes, and for the default game mode you would select BP my game mode. I'm going to leave it at the third person game mode though, so I'll delete this. So open up your game mode, and if you don't see this, if you see the full editor like this, then you can just go to class defaults and change the player controller class to our new player controller, which is BP player controller. Compile and save that. If I didn't mention, I'm already saving automatically when I compile. Next, what you need to do is go ahead and create. Because I'm answering this in the context of Dragonborn, he has a teapot actor that he'd like to pick up when the F key is pressed. So I will create a new blueprint class based off actor and call it BP teapot. Save that. I'll open that up. First, you need to make sure, let's add a static mesh to this. Drag the static mesh on the default scene root. And I will select a shape cube as my teapot. You need a box collision nested inside of the mesh, and make sure you resize that so it's just a little bit bigger than the mesh. That way you will collide with it you'll collide with the box collision before you hit the mesh. And that looks about good enough for me. Okay. Compile and save. One important thing that we need to do here is go to class defaults and check replicates. We need to replicate this actor when it's modified. For example, when it's destroyed on the server, we need to replicate that to the clients. So compile, make sure replicate is true, and then in your BP teapot, go to your event graph, delete the event tick. We don't need that here, and begin play. Go ahead and keep actor begin overlap, but add actor end overlap as well. Okay. So when the teapot is overlapped, we want to take the actor that's overlapping it, try to cast to third person character. That's the third person character that comes packaged with the third person starter project. If we can successfully cast the actor that is overlapping the teapot to a third person character, we want to get the controller that's bound to the third person character and then cast to our BP player controller. So if that's successful, do that. Straighten the pin, bring that up, and go ahead and copy that and paste that for end overlap right here and connect the other actor pin. Alright, we are looking good here. I need to add one event to BP player controller so we can wrap up the teapot. So go back here, open up your player controller, go to the event graph, go ahead and delete both of those, and we will need two custom events. We need we just need one custom event for now. We'll do set overlapping actor, which takes a parameter overlapping actor, and we will make its type an actor right down here, reference, compile. Go back to the teapot, drag off the BP player controller, and call set overlapping actor. Make sure so next we need to take this other actor and connect it right there. No, I'm sorry. We don't want that because other actor would be the third person character. What we want is to assign that to self. Get a reference to self. There we go. Okay. Next, on end overlap, we need to call the same method, set overlapping actor, but leave this pin blank. That'll set it to null. That'll tell our controller that it's no longer overlapping our teapot. Next, we can close out of this and open up the player controller, and then right click the overlapping actor and promote to variable and call that overlapping actor. This variable really only needs to be accessed by the player controller itself, so you can go up here and check private, and that will make sure no blueprints outside of your player controller will access that variable and potentially unset it and do things you don't want it to do. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and create the widgets, or actually spawn them and add them to the viewport. So type in event begin play, add that event, and right click and look for is local player controller. Press and hold B, left click the mouse, and connect the branch like that. So the way the isLocalPlayerController works, the way you want to use this when you create the HUD. You want to use this when you create the HUD because if you're running a dedicated server, that dedicated server is the authority, and each of your players are connecting from different computers that have displays like monitors, so they have a viewport. But if you're on a dedicated authority machine, it won't have a viewport. So if you were to try to create the widget and assign it to the viewport, not only on the clients but on the authority, you would get errors in your message logs, and you'd be wondering what's going on. Well, that's what is happening, is you're trying to assign a widget to a viewport on the authority when it doesn't have a viewport. So this prevents that. This will only return true if the current instance of player controller is being run on a machine that has a viewport. In other words, a player. So right click and look for create widget, and select the class and look for journal and do WB journal. So if this is a local player, create the widget, right click the return value, promote to variable, and call that WB journal. Make that private because no other blueprint except our player controller should be accessing that. So we just keep things more encapsulated and we reduce the likelihood of bugs, because that way outside blueprints won't be modifying the WB journal when it shouldn't be. So right click this last pin on the set, just drag off of it and look for add to viewport and select that. On begin play, create HUD/widgets. Okay, and that is done. Next, what we need to do is we need to set up our interaction keys. So go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, Collapse Action Mappings, click on plus to add a new one, call this Interact, and look for the F key right here. And you can close out of this now. So next, right click that, search for the Interact Action Event, and when it's pressed, we want to check if the overlapping actor is valid. So look for is valid, and grab this one with a question mark, this macro. Drag from the pressed to the exec pin. So if we have a valid actor, so if we're actually overlapping an actor and this is valid, then what we want to do is we need to add a message to our WB journal. So drag WB journal, get it, drag off that, and look for add message. If it's valid, we will add a message to our journal or log. The next thing you would want to do is you just need to put in your timestamp and your message, or whatever other parameters you will store in the journal. So what I'm going to do is I'll drag off here, I'll get display name, I'll drag off the string node return value and look for append. Hold down Alt and left click to break the link and drag that on B. Drag that back here. And for here we will say you picked up a, and then a space. So it'll say you picked up a teapot. We'll move this way. Drag off the string return value and cast to text. So type in to text right there. Plug that into the message. The next I will look for UTC now. This will get the current date and time as a UTC, datetime, which is a universal time, used heavily among the developer world. Drag off the return value. Look for text. So type in text under utilities, text. We want as datetime. I think we want this one. Maybe. I think we want that one. Drag off here and plug it into the timestamp. And let's move this over a little bit. Clean this up a tad bit. Add a comment. Add journal entry to interacted object. For interacted object. Okay. Next, what we want to do, Dragonborn would like to destroy this actor after the entry has been made. So what we will do is we'll create one additional event. So custom event, add custom event, and call this interact with object. Its one and only parameter for now will be the interacted actor. It will be an actor reference. What we need to do is we need to change this to run on server, and I will mark it as reliable. So this way we will call interact with object from our client machine, and it will replicate. It'll be sent to the authority, where on the authority this will then be run. And reliable will make sure that 99.999% of the time this will make it to the authority server. So you don't want to make every single replicated function or event a reliable one, because then you're gonna make everything reliable and then it messes up the likelihood of real important things getting to the server. So on our interact with object, we will drag off the interacted actor parameter and call destroy actor, the utility right here. And let's see, destroy actor that was interacted with. And that's it for this event. What we need to do now is drag off this and call interact with object. This will call the function and tell the game to send it to the authority to be run on the authority. And then click and drag off the overlapping actor and set it. Click and drag from here, connect that. So after we send the event to the server will destroy the actor, and then we set the overlapping actor to none/null. That way we won't reference this again unless another actor is overlapped. So by setting this to null, what we are preventing is when the server destroys this actor, this reference to the actor that was just destroyed becomes bad. If you try to access it and use the actor object that's stored here, Unreal Engine will throw a lot of log messages and scream at you and tell you that you're accessing an actor that is in the process of being destroyed. And so when we overlap an actor, it sets this, and then we can press F key, and so if this is a valid actor, we will run this. So if we didn't have is valid right here, and if we didn't have this, what would happen is the old reference, or the reference to the actor that was destroyed, would stay in this variable. So when you press the interact key over and over, you get a bunch of log messages because you're still trying to interact with the actor that was already destroyed. Okay, so when we overlap an actor, it gets stored here. When you press F, if it's a valid actor object, we log the message, we send a request to the server to delete it, and then we set this to null. So now what we need to do, compile and save that, go back to your map, and I'm going to drag in my teapot object right there. Save that and build that. So now I should be able to run this, and we can verify that everything works as it should. Almost up on 30 minutes. I'll try to get this done before then. So player controller, play. So it's just one player so far. You can see I've got the scroll box up there, and if I walk up here and I press F, it shows me a message, and that's one thing that I forgot to do. And we also have warnings. So open up the WB journal entry, go back to the text block and change the font size to 14, and change that to 14. Cool. Compile that and access none, trying to read interacted actor in player controller from node destroy. So, and that's what I was talking about. This is one of the issues with not checking is valid. So we can prevent further issues by dragging off here and doing is valid. If it's valid, then we can destroy the actor. And let's clean this up a little bit. And what we forgot to do is drag the overlapping actor and connect it right there. So when we call this event, and we send it to the server, we pass along a reference to the actor that the server needs to delete. Okay. Now it should work. So if I play, go over here, step into the box collision, press F, I picked it up, and it's deleted. So let me show you really quick. If I break that pin and go back here, I can press F repeatedly, and it'll add messages and start scrolling. So if I connect this, and then I'll break that, and let's see if I can produce that error. walk up to that, press. Okay, well, I don't think there's an error because we have our is valid check right there. But I can drag that there. And let's test this with multiplayer. I'll do dedicated server with 2 players. Play that. Walk over here. And pick that up, and it disappears. And you can see that I replicated to all clients because it was destroyed on the server who has authority. So when you destroy an actor on a client, it doesn't replicate to all of the clients. It's just that one client. If you destroy an actor from the server, it will replicate to all clients if the actor is set to replicate right in here in the class defaults and replicates. So watch this. If I set that to false and I play, it probably won't replicate. See, it was destroyed on the server, but it still appears on each client because it doesn't replicate. If I go back here and look in the actors right here, you can see there's no BP teapot in this list because it was, oh, well, there's one right there. But anyways, my point made. So let's close out of that and we'll change replicates to yes. So one additional practical thing that I would change, to be scalable is instead of having this and the teapot, you're probably going to have multiple actors that you can interact with. So if you go back to the map, right click in here, new blueprint class, parent class would be actor, type in BP interactable, save that, open that, go back to your teapot, highlight all of this, Control X to cut, compile and save, go back to BP interactable, go to the event graph, delete those, compile, Control V and paste, compile and save, and go back to your teapot, go to class settings, go back to parent class and change this to BP interactable, compile and save, go to play, and press F. It replicated to all clients, it picked up, it logged, everything works. So the reason we have BP interactable is I can now go and create additional actors. I'll create an actor, this time down here look for BP interactable. That'll be its parent class, select that and call this BP sword. Open up the sword. I'll let's see, we'll add a static mesh, and this will be, I'll do a pie shape, and then we need to add a box collision. Click and drag that in the static mesh, make that larger so it'll cover the entire size of that thing. Move it over, and that might be good enough. So the reason this extends BP interactable is I don't have to, back up. Yeah, delete that. I don't have to copy and paste this code among all of my actors that can be interacted with. So if I go back here and I click and drag the teapot there, I'll add the sword as well, and save that and build the map. So by extending BP interactable, I'm just reusing code that is commonly used among all actors that can be interacted with. So that's done. If I play this, we'll see that I can. So you see how that disappeared, but that didn't? That doesn't disappear because if we go back here, we didn't set this to replicates. So when it was deleted from the server, it didn't replicate that destroy actor command to the client. And now it does what we expect it to do. There's nothing left for this client to pick up. And that's how you make a simple journal and log system in Unreal Engine.